If you ask the people closest to me, they'll tell you that Danielle, who has exercised first thing of the day, is bright and bubbly and has a vitality for life. Once upon a time, it was very much about physique and physical performance and how I looked. And I think for me, it's very much now about mindset.
Whether you're a parent, a professional, or simply someone seeking more balance and clarity, this week's guest is someone who truly embodies the art of reinvention and the power of purpose. Danielle Richards is the founder of Brite Edge and a class instructor at Total Fusion Lions.
I've jumped from fitness to finance, back to fitness, and now on my own little business venture, which is very exciting.
In this conversation, Danielle opens up about her personal evolution from the structured world of finance through burnout and back to wellness, and how that journey shaped her view on success, self-leadership, and sustainable living.
It feels good to do something good for yourself, right? And the mindset. The mind is everything, and your entire day is shaped by the mindset that you adopt.
Danielle, welcome to Share.
Hey, Steve. Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's great to have you all dressed up formally and not in active wear at the front of a cycle class.
I was going to say, you wouldn't even recognize me with the hair down, active wear not on. I actually have to wear glasses when I'm sitting in front of a computer as well. So it's a very different look to how you normally see me at 5:30 in the morning.
You get that a little bit being out and about, and you'll walk past people and people will be like, is that Danielle?
Happens all the time, often at Coles. We're doing the grocery shopping, pushing a trolley, and someone will make awkward eye contact. I know they know me. I know them, but they're not in their active wear. And it takes a second for us to go, actually, we went through a cycle class together today. Great to see that your shopping cart's not full of chocolate like mine is.
That's because you've got a son.
Yes. Well, sure. Let's say that. Let's say that it's not for
And
me.
a sister.
Yes, this is true. Yes, we do enjoy the little dessert from time to time. And I like to say that I work out enough for it. But at the end of the day, it's not about earning the calories. It's about eating something that I enjoy.
Yeah. Well, over the time I've known you, Danielle, we've had some great conversations in wellness, in cycle, just around the gym. And I thought, what a great way to share your knowledge and experience and your insights, not just into the corporate world, but also into wellness, wellbeing, the health and fitness sector as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, I know we have connected a lot over fitness, but as you know, and we've spoken about a little bit, we do share experience in a corporate world. And I've jumped from fitness to finance, back to fitness, and now on my own little business venture, which is very exciting.
Yeah. So tell me, where did fitness start for you in your life?
Yeah. Oh, look, how far back do we want to go?
We can
I've
go
always
all the way back. Where were you inspired?
Look, I've always been I was an active kid. I think that I grew up in a time where you would jump on your bike of a weekend and not say hello to your parents again until 5 p.m. of an evening. So I was always quite active at school. I played sport. That continued right up until probably the age of 15 when I discovered that working for money and friends and socializing became more important, but nonetheless still kept a fairly active lifestyle, whether that be through the gym, walks, bushwalking, hiking. I'm a hiking enthusiast. But where I got really serious about my fitness was I actually went to uni for a couple of years and I studied human movement or exercise physiology, I think is the degree now. And I found that sitting in a room learning about treatment and cure over prevention to be quite misaligned to what I really believed. And so I decided to quit uni and entered the world of personal training. So I did go and study to be a personal trainer, which, is not a difficult thing to do. There's a lot of personal trainers out there and there's a lot of knowledge out there. But I really invested in my education and tried to become the best personal trainer that I could be and worked in that industry for a good few years before just lifestyle and a few things changed in my personal circumstances and I made the jump to finance. But throughout all of it, I've always been quite avid in looking after my wellness, not just the fitness and physical health, but largely and probably more of late, the importance that it has for my mental health and resilience. So it's a really important part of who I am and my lifestyle, my family's lifestyle. And that's, of course, how we met. So I get to meet a lot of really cool people doing what I do.
And that's one of the important things about people bringing wellness, well-being, working on their health and fitness. If you make it just part of life, it's easy and it can also be fun.
Oh, 100%. It's all about systems. There's a little, I suppose my little mantra is that you perform to the level of your preparation, not just your intention. And intention is part of it, right? We need to have intent to want to do more or maybe better ourselves or evolve. But ultimately, it's great to have the thought and it's great to put that out into the world. But unless you prepare the right systems, your mindset, the culture that you have in your home, in your workplace, your life, it's really hard to execute. And that's true for anything we do, right? It's true for athletes who have to go out and perform in their peak performance. It's true in a corporate setting, and it's true of trying to better ourselves.
Yeah. And I think one of the key things that I've found over the years is that, you know, if you want to be someone or if you want to make changes in your life, it's all about the environment that you put yourself in. So, if you don't want to be a drinker, if you don't want to go and party every weekend, well, then if you put yourself in an environment of people that don't drink, or don't drink much and don't want to party every weekend, but instead want to go and hit a trail, it puts you in a better environment, and there's a flow on effect of that through life.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of that comes down to what your personal values are. Adventure is my number one value. I love adventure, whether that's going and hiking a new trail, whether it's trying something new that really does take me out of my zone of comfort. And I think that that's where, when there's a little bit of spontaneity as well, that helps. But seeking that adventure for me is really important. And I know that I want to be able to get up at 4:30 in the morning to, whether it's cycle in the gym or hit a trail, as you've said, that's really important to me. So I'm going to prepare the night before, the days before I have to do that thing. And that doesn't necessarily involve staying up till 1 a.m., partying and drinking. Now, that's not to say that I don't do those things, right? Maybe not so much now. I turn into a pumpkin after 9 p.m. I say that all the time. But that's part of my preparation to
Mm.
execute on the things that I want to in life. And I think that that's really important. It's applicable across different contexts of your life. If you want to be someone who wakes up early, it's great to have that intent. Great, we're halfway there. But what systems are you putting in place to allow you to execute on that? Do you set a reminder on your phone to power down and go to bed by 9 o'clock? Do you lay out your clothes so that you don't have to think about that in the morning, because the path of least resistance is going to get you to where you want to be sooner. So the preparation that goes into being able to do the things you want to do really does make a difference when the stakes are a little higher or when it's game time.
Yeah. Danielle, I know obviously health and fitness is a big thing for you, but talk to me about the feeling that you have when you exercise of a morning, and also the feeling that if you have a bit of a sleep in and you don't exercise, how do you feel?
Ah, well, if you ask the people closest to me, they'll tell you that Danielle, who has exercised first thing of the day, is bright and bubbly and has I guess, a vitality for life. Versus when I haven't, I'm a little bit slower, maybe a little bit more flat, perhaps even a little irritated. Um, for me, it's very much now about mindset. Once upon a time, it was very much about physique and physical performance and how I looked. And I think that's okay. If that's important to you, then that's an absolutely fine goal to have when it comes to your health and fitness. But for me now, I wear many hats. I'm a mum, I'm a wife, I'm a group fitness instructor. For a long time, I was a people leader in mid to senior level management for a large financial organization. And you can't, or I couldn't at least, balance those hats that I had to wear without looking after my mental health first. And I tried. I fell into the trap of giving everything to everybody else before giving something to myself. And the result of that was burnout. So I think that for me, I feel far more empowered and in control of the events that are going to unfold, even where I have no control. Let's be honest, there's not a whole lot that sits in our circle of control. But the one thing that I do for me that no one else can take away is setting aside that 30 to 60 minutes of time where I'm doing something good for my mind and body, which sets me up for success throughout the day. And I feel more resilient for it.
Yeah, that's perfect. You mentioned there around, going from, looking good to feeling good, and it's interesting because I think that if you feel good, you actually look good, right?
You
Like I
do.
think sometimes when you work on your health and fitness and you're really working on not just the physical elements, but also the spiritual, emotional elements, mental elements of your wellness and well-being, people say to me, "Oh, Steve, you're looking fantastic," and I'll go, "Oh, really? Okay, thanks for that." But it's actually because when you feel good, you obviously emit that confidence. You emit that kind of
Definitely.
feeling that, you're driven, that you're feeling good and you're on top of your game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it feels good to do something good for yourself, right? And there's all sorts of things that parents, and in particular, I say mums because I interact with a lot of mothers, but it's true of any parent, right? Um, we give a lot to other people, especially our kids. And if you're not a parent, you'll be giving to somebody, right? You'll be giving to your friends, your family, your job. And it's really easy to fall into this trap of, oh, I need to do better. I need to be there more. I need to be all of these different things. I need to be everything to everybody else, but neglect the things that are really important to showing up for yourself first. And when you feel better about yourself, you can still give to everybody and actually feel like you're not burning the candle at both ends. You actually have done something good for you. Now, that could be exercise, it could be meditation, it could be nourishing from a nutrition perspective. And that's all very important, that holistic well-being. But the mindset, the mind is everything. And your entire day is shaped by the mindset that you adopt. Now, whether that's an intentional mindset or whether you're someone who falls victim to the day's events. You sit in the car, you jump on the way to work, if you're working in the office and you sit in traffic. Now, most people get really irritated by that. I used to be one of those people who would get so frustrated until I went, you know what, this is an opportunity to put on a podcast and maybe learn something and take this opportunity as a micro learning. Or maybe I'll call a friend that I know I've been saying for ages, hey, let's connect, let's go out for dinner, which never happens because our lives are too busy. But I'll sit and talk to you for 30 minutes on the phone. And the way that you approach anything you do, health and fitness, your job, parenting, showing up as a partner, your mindset is half the battle. And once you lock
Hmm.
into that feeling more positive, more often than unhelpful, or those helpful thought patterns, you're setting yourself up for a win, I think.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned obviously, kind of showing up as better as a mum, as a wife, those kind of things. Talk to me about, obviously when you talk, when you're looking at the corporate world, and obviously you've been in the corporate world, you work in that space. When it comes to wellness and well-being, when it comes to preparing your son for the big bad world when he, kind of gets out of school and moves into whether it's corporate or a trade or anything like that. What are some of the things you are instilling in him around resilience, around, how to deal with the world and obviously how to look after himself?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Look, my 8.5-year-old is going on 18, and he'll have a fantastic career as a lawyer or any occupation that requires him to negotiate or argue. But jokes aside, I think for him, we talk a lot about the importance of communication, and
Mm-hmm.
I've listened to some of your previous guests talk about this as a concept. Communication is of utmost importance in just about any career, any relationship you have. We often neglect it in our relationships because we hope that the people closest to us just get us and where we're at, and we put all that time and energy into our jobs. But communication is super important. So for him, we talk a lot about how, when it's more than just what's going on at school or how is your day. It's, share with me something that you learned today. Could you tell me something that I might not know? It's asking questions that, I suppose, offer a provocation for him to think differently rather than just respond with, oh, my day was good, or, oh, I don't know what I did at school today. It's also picking the time to engage with him. But in terms of his, I suppose, resilience and building an understanding of his mind, that's something that I was not certainly taught. I've had to figure that out as I got older, and it's not something that I recall. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but I don't recall ever being told that there is a lot that you need to do to help your mindset when you're entering a test or entering a high pressure situation. Just how much your mind and the things and the stories that you tell yourself influence the way you perform. And that's the problem, right? We live in a society that's so focused on an outcome that we neglect the systems, the culture, the behaviors that go into generating that outcome. So when I talk to my son about, NAPLAN, he's in grade 3. NAPLAN's been a massive week for him, and any parents with kids in 3, 5, 7, and 9 would know what I'm talking about here. There's an element of pressure because they're going in to be tested. And when, my son talked to me about that, I said, it doesn't really matter, I think, how, what the outcome is. It's really about the effort that you're putting in. So you know that you can do math, you know that you can read, you know that you can write stories, and you're not going to get any better tonight and between now tonight and tomorrow morning. So you just need to go and do your best. But let's think about the things we can do now to set you up for a great day tomorrow. Let's make sure we eat something healthy for dinner. And when I say healthy, I'm talking a little bit of protein, a little bit of carbs, something nutrient dense, not 2-minute noodles. So let's make sure we get something going for you. By the way, 2-minute noodles is a frequent dinner in our household for him anyway. Um, the other thing is like getting to bed on time. Let's have a great big drink of water. Let's make sure we settle into bed, maybe even 20 minutes before your regular bedtime so that you can just calm your mind and get a good night's sleep. So when you wake up tomorrow, you just need to do the same things that you would do any other morning, put on your uniform, get yourself to school, jump into your classroom and do your test. Um, and that's just become something that he does now. We still have some battles from time to time in the morning around getting dressed and finding a sock, and his auntie who lives with us, loves to antagonize him a little bit and make things a little competition to see who can get out the door sooner. And he can sometimes get swept up in that. But ultimately, he knows that if he prepares the day before, the hours before, he's up for a better day.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely very true with kids. And I think it's interesting because if you look at the school system and how, nap plan, how exams are done, like there's lots of research and science done into,
Yeah.
if kids get up in the morning and go for a walk or a run, and then they go to school and they are put through exam conditions or testing conditions, they perform better. But what happens is most kids get to bed late, they're up on Snapchat and all these other different apps pinging them all night, right? They don't get a great night's sleep. They drag themselves out, or their parents drag themselves out of bed in the morning. They get them dressed. They kind of just, slouch into the car. You drop them at school, and then they're expected to perform at their best.
Yeah, look, I've got some personal views on our schooling system, and
Don't
probably
we
not
all?
all that well informed, to be perfectly honest. It's not my scope or my remit, but just as a parent who has a young child in the schooling system, there's and it's not just the schooling system, right? It's any job. You think about any career that you've worked in. It's KPIs and goals, and I think I suppose contemporary now, we're looking a lot more at culture and the values, the behaviors of an organization, teams and the dynamics there. We are starting to slowly shift away from just focusing on the outcome and thinking about all of the inputs that actually produce that goal, that beacon on the hill that we're all aiming for. But it starts so young. Like we are putting people into a system where we are valuing performance over maybe effort or values such as kindness, empathy, communication. And so when you put kids, adults, ourselves into those environments where there's a competition element, you think about a test, you're competing. Now, whether that's competing against another school, whether that's competing against another student, you do this as adults where we go into our jobs and we have peers. And often we should be working with them to produce an outcome, but ultimately a business is competing against another business in the same industry. Like there is competition everywhere. And so our society is a system built on performance. And that's okay because it helps in terms of motivating and having a purpose that drives you to do something more than what you would without it. But we're neglecting the systems and the mindset and all of those behaviors that actually make the process of achieving that outcome enjoyable. Um, and and we're seeing that. There's an increase in mental illness. There's an increase in people having mental health episodes that they don't know how to cope with or struggle with because they're trying to do too much. And we overcomplicate it with different social medias as an example. You can jump on social media and you could look at any fitness influencer and it could be on the topic of building muscle. And let's say you watch 5 different reels, they're going to tell you 5 different things. So what's true? What's not? How do I find what works for me amongst all this noise? How do I decipher what do I believe in to be good for me? When there's so much available. And don't get me wrong, like I think having information at your fingertips is fantastic. It's not something that I had in my early schooling years, and now I did the ability to jump on and Google something super quick and be like, oh yeah, this is the thing. I think that's amazing. But I think what's lacking is that we are really, firstly, quick to take what someone else has said who has a million followers or something like that as gospel, and neglect the extra steps to make sure that that is a well-informed decision, and not in isolation of a bunch of other things that we often have going on in life. But secondly, because it is so readily available, there's no motivation to go and learn it more deeply or better yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think about it now. You watch a movie or you do anything and you're like, oh, what's the age of that actor? Google. Again, it's kind of like technology to a certain point is kind of connecting us more. It's giving us more information, but it's also, I think, dumbing us down in some regards because we don't actually have to think or remember. We just go, oh, stuff that. We'll just search it on Google or we'll use ChatGPT and get the answer for it.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Look, and AI tools are fantastic, right? But just like anything, we will find a way to abuse it, and we will find a way to have it work against, I suppose, what the good that it can do. Um, yeah. Look, I think you're right. I think our memory. I think that we will start to see cognitive impacts of short form content and I guess the availability of information at a click. We will start to see that as I mean, as a, manager in my previous role, we saw it in new recruits all the time when we were hiring, new candidates, just in the way that they interviewed, the way that their, resumes were written, the way that they communicated is very, very different because
Mm.
it's all via text, or we send a reel, or, there's this whole new generation now with language where something should mean something else, but it doesn't. It's something else entirely, and I think we are more connected than ever, but also that connection is driving a further wedge in being able to have conversations and communicate effectively.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I think that, and I think there's a huge increase in obviously diagnosis of ADHD. It's obviously a huge topic out there at the moment, and I think there's got to be a connection. You talk about, there's going to be some kind of, I suppose, after effects of this technology and of these apps and of AI. But as technology's increased, I think so has the diagnosis of ADHD, right? There's so much for our attention. There's like for someone that has ADHD and you talk to them what it's like. And I interviewed Loz recently who explained her experience and how she deals with it and how she's used it as a superpower. But she's like, she has all these side treks, right? That she kind of always is going on. And when you've got so many things, you've got a phone, you've got a smartwatch, you've got, you know, earphones in your ears, you've got a laptop, you've got conversations going on, you've got music, you've got all these things. No wonder we're struggling to, get focused and, be able to kind of, stay on task with a number of things.
Oh, definitely. We deal with a lot of stimuli throughout the day, as you've just pointed out. And look, I won't pretend to know enough around neurodivergency and
Mm,
being neurotypical. What I probably can comment on is that when you set down to do a task, how often do you just focus on that task? Do
mm.
you sit for 20 minutes, 30 minutes and just do the one thing? Or are you doing that thing, but over on the side, you've got your phone pinging and you pick that phone up to respond to a text message? Now, that act, we do it all the time. I did it. I still do it. I saw it all the time as a leader. I would watch, my team be really focused on a piece of work, and then a Teams message would ping, and they're off to the side doing something on Teams. Right now, that moment where you've gone from focusing on the work that you were doing to having to flick to a different mindset and produce an answer to a question someone's asked you, that takes a little jump, from one thing to the other, and then to go back to the thing that you were doing, your mind has to work just that little bit harder to go, oh, what was I doing? Where did I leave off? What you interrupt your concentration, your train of thought, and that starts to have a mental toll, right? That cognitive load of flicking between different tasks, or what I like to say, having too many tabs open, really does start to drain. And that's why I love exercise so much, or hiking, even if it's not in a gym, if it's just moving your body, because often it's a mindfulness. You're focusing on the one thing, and if I think about cycle classes we've done together, how often do you work and absolutely bust your gut on that bike, but you're thinking about the 50 things that you've got ahead of you for that day? probably not all that much, right?
No.
When I'm up there with a microphone on and I'm going, right, let's count our 1, 2, let's pedal up this giant hill, let's increase that tension. I'm in the moment and I'm solely focused on making sure that one, I don't fall off my bike, but two, that the other, 30 humans in the room who are there to better themselves are there, that they are present, that they are really focused in on how they can simply show up in that moment on that bike, or a boxing class or reform or whatever it is that I'm instructing. And I think that that's why the movement and the exercise element for me is so important, because it's almost to a degree of meditation for me. It keeps me focused on doing one thing, and that is doing something good for my body.
Yeah. Have you discovered any tips in regards to, getting that cycle, that exercise, that adventure kind of piece that kind of, sends you into that meditation that you can link into staying focused on, on one task for a 20 or 30-minute time frame and really giving 100% of your focus to that?
Yeah, it's not sexy stuff, I'm gonna say. It is like, it really isn't. I really wish that I could say, "Right, let's go take a pill to increase our focus," and there are products that will tell you that that is the case. But it is honestly just minimizing your distraction. It's putting my phone on do not disturb. It's choosing to show up, and be present with the people that are in my company. And I think it links back to understanding that one of my personal values is connection. So how can I connect with you if I'm also on my phone? Or how can I connect with you if I'm distracted by, I don't know, my child? Now, understandably, things drop in and we need to prioritize one task over another. That's just the nature of what we do, whether that's at work, whether that's at home. Um, but I think if you can go in with an intent and set up systems around you to support you in being focused on that one thing, then you're setting yourself up for a better outcome. Um, I think also, there's little things like setting a timer on your phone, lots of little strategies where you time block, right? I'm going to do for the next 20 minutes this one thing. And for 20 minutes, I'm not going to allow anything to creep in. And if 20 minutes seems unachievable, start at 5 minutes, start at 10 minutes. Think about what is a realistic expectation for me to focus in on one task, and let's just start small. I think the other thing too, Steve, and you're gonna have to stop me because I can get really passionate about this. We live in a world where we are promised quick fix solutions, and we're attracted to that because of probably the short form content stuff we were talking about before, right? We don't want to have to work for it. And the reality is anything worth having in life, you're going to have to put in a degree of effort. And if you're not putting in the effort, it's probably not something that's going to give you a sustainable or long term results, right? Or it will be something you can do for a short amount of time, whether that's, a week, a month. But what about the longevity? So I really do believe that if you can adopt some small strategies that allow you to block your time to and tell people that too, like let people know, hey, I'm really trying to focus on getting XYZ done. Is it okay for us to talk later, or is it okay for me to move our conversation or meeting or whatever it is so that I can fit this little time in for myself to prepare better for what's to come. But yeah, I think the health and fitness and the fit and wellness industry is terrible for this. And I know I appreciate that I'm in it. And so I say this, with so much love for those who are also fitness professionals, wellness professionals. We need to be realistic with the people that we're interacting with, and stop telling people, you need to do this 7 days a week. You need to exercise 7 days a week for at least an hour a day. Most people don't have that time, or they're going to struggle if they're not doing anything at all to find that time. So start small, twice a week, block out 15 minutes for yourself. And when you can achieve that, bump it up a little, make it 30 minutes twice a week. Then once you're doing that consistently, let's start to tweak it, and we'll jump to 3 days a week. Being consistent doesn't need to be doing the perfect day every single day. It just means more often than not, you are tipping the scales in your favor and choosing the thing that is going to get you to your goals sooner, more often than you are choosing the things that are not.
Yep. Yep. And I think it's interesting. I wrote a post recently and I was talking to it with Joel. We were talking about his episode with the dietitian. And it was interesting, because I look at, for me, consistency. I used to be like, 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 I used a 30-day challenge person with the gym, or an 8-week challenge or whatever, and I'd go and I'd absolutely smash myself, and then at the end of it I'd be like, I feel good. And then 4 to 6 weeks later, I'm like, I'm back to probably where I was. And I'm like, what's
Yeah.
going on here? So for me, one of the key things, and that's why I've loved cycle so much, is it's just that 3 to 4 days a week cycle, 30 minutes hit cycle, or 45 minutes total cycle, any of those kind of things. But it's the consistency, right? And the consistency makes me feel so much better,
Yeah.
because I know that it doesn't matter what's happening in life. If there's a wedding, or if there's a party, or if there's a holiday, if I keep doing those things consistently, and even if I come back from a holiday, I just get back on the bike and I do those things and I do those classes, then it just works out. It just, I get back, like they say, like, you fall off the wagon, get back on it. Well, you fall off the bike, you get back on it, right? Like for me, that's what I've really worked out, is that consistency, and just trusting that if you do if you put those things into your schedule, and you kind of go through those motions, that you will just get back into the flow of it.
Yeah, and you just got to make it not hard, right? Because, like I said before, your brain will look for the path of least resistance, even if that means creating future problems for yourself. So, you just need to choose
Mm.
what problem you want to have, right? For example, getting up early every day so that I can fit time into exercise and do what I do in the mornings comes with the problem of also needing to go to bed a little earlier, which means that sometimes I miss out on time with, family or friends if they're having a late night dinner or something like that. You've got to choose your hard. There is nothing in life that is going to be problem free. It's just, what problems are you going to choose to have? Do you want the problem of health implications, health issues because you choose not to look after yourself physically and mentally? Or do you choose to have the problem of maybe every now and then having a little bit of a niggle in the lower back because we maybe pushed a little too hard in the gym, but hey, let's go get a treatment plan to make sure that we don't do that again next time? Because something short term, the saying short term pain, long term gain, it's not something that I use all of the time. But the reality of, I think, what sits at the base of that is that if we can choose our hard and think about the longevity, or what future state would look like as a result of choosing that hard, what's better or worse for you, right? Everything we have in life comes with some kind of trade-off. So what are you
Mm.
trading off? Is it the partying and the drinking? Okay, is that such a bad problem to trade off? And does it mean that we can't do those things ever? No, of course not. On a Friday or a Saturday, when I don't have to wake up first thing 4:30 in the morning, I might get up at 5:30, sleep in. That's okay. It's just about having that balance, and that's really important. I think often when people fall off the wagon on their goals or their intentions, is that we put this expectation to perform at a level that we've maybe seen somebody else perform at, or we see someone, I'm not oblivious to the fact that I'm in a very privileged position where I do conduct group fitness classes, and I've been working on my health and fitness for 20 years. And there are people who walk into those studios who may never have done a day of exercise in their life, or never done a cycle class in their life. And they're going to sit on that bike, and the first thing they're going to do is what? They're going to compare. And that's
Mm.
really unfair on their part, right? Because they're comparing themselves to someone or a room full of people who are at a completely different point in their fitness journey. And so it's these unrealistic expectations to perform at somebody else's level that knocks us backwards, because we don't see the systems that those people have put in place. We don't know what systems we need yet to be able to achieve. And so when I talk about consistency, if it just means that once a week you're showing up to a class and you just sit and spin the legs on the bike, or you just give reformer a go, whatever it is, right? Pick your passion when it comes to moving your body. If you can just choose to do those things more often than you are not, and even if one day it's for 5 minutes versus 15 minutes, that is consistency, because you're consistently choosing a mindset to show up for yourself in that way for that specific goal. It's the same with diet and nutrition. How many fad diets are out there? Let's do a 30-day cleanse. Let's do a 7-day cleanse. Like, it's not sustainable. More often than not, just choose nutrient dense foods most of the time. So when you have your bag of M&Ms, that's okay, because it's once and it's an occasional thing. It's not going to become a habit because we're going to choose the other stuff more often than we're not. Tip the
Yeah.
scales in your favor.
And I think the key thing is, someone said to me years ago, they're like, it's not a 30-day challenge. It's not an 8-week challenge. Every year we're on a 365-day challenge, right? Like the challenge has got to last our life, right? Like we want to be the best we can be, the healthiest we can be, the fittest we can be for as long as we live, right? So it's not about these short-term challenges. It's really about committing and focusing on, being the best that you can be each day. And if one day you don't feel it, that's okay. You just do it the next day, and you just over time, the habit comes in.
That's right. And I think, people know when they're starting to form habits that aren't serving them in the way because you don't feel good. But we still choose those things because it's easier to do that than it is to maybe shake things up and change. So there has to be a level of discomfort at some point. It doesn't matter if you're starting out a new a new exercise or training plan or a new job, right? So jobs, everyone needs to work for a living, right? We all need money to put food on the table. So I'll use this in a context of work. When we need to go to find a new job, right? We submit our resumes, we put on our best attire, we show up in the best version of ourselves so that we can compete for the job that we want because it's the right salary, the right whatever organization, and we go and give that job 110%. Right now, think about the discomfort of starting a new job. It might have been a while for yourself, but anyone listening, think about the last time you started a new role. It was uncomfortable, but you did it because the motivation of income was there. So if you think about putting in place changes to better your mind, your body, your health, there has to be an element of discomfort because if there's not, you're probably not changing enough to make you feel better. We just don't prioritize those things enough. And and maybe that's because we've got too many demands on our time or we try to do too much. We try to show up for too many people. But if you want to keep doing all of those things, at some point, you're going to need to get really real with yourself. You're going to need to ask yourself some tough questions. Am I showing up as the person that I am most proud of? I love using this one. Am I role modeling the behaviors I want my kids to role model? If I was to go back and tell my younger self, the person that they're about to become, is that a proud moment for you? And if that creates a little bit of discomfort and you're like, oh, maybe not, that's probably a little sign, something in your mind that's going, okay, I need to change something. The next provocation I have for that is don't try and change everything at once because it's too much too soon. You don't need to go and change and start exercising 5 days a week and start a new nutrition plan because you're shaking things up too much. Our bodies and our minds don't love change. Doesn't matter how often we tell ourselves to have a growth mindset and approach this as a learning opportunity. We are creatures of habit. And if you can introduce changes in like small increments and in iterations, then that is going to be far more sustainable than trying to do a big bang and do everything at once. Because when you do have one day of a speed wobble, you go, I'll throw it out the window and I'll start again next week, right? And it's okay to have speed wobbles. It's also okay to not maybe hit all of the things that you said that you wanted to, but if you've hit more of the things on your, new me list, I'm going to drink more water today. Okay, so if you're drinking 500 ml of water and your goal is to get to 2 liters and you only had 1 liter, that's still an improvement on the 500 that you were having before. So don't see that as I wasn't good enough. I didn't get to 2 liters today. Look at the fact that you improved on what you did the day before. And that's what's going to get you the long-term result. And as for things like 30-day challenges, 12-week challenges, they are a great little motivator. I still do those because it feels good to work towards something. But just think about what are you learning in that process that you can then continue and sustain over the long run.
Before we get back into the episode, from time to time you might have a burning question, a guest recommendation, a comment or some feedback, which I always appreciate. If so, I'd love to continue the conversation after this episode, so let's connect. I'm easy to find, but the best place to engage and connect is on Instagram, @TheSteveHodgson. But that's enough from me. Let's get back into the episode.
Yeah, that's put very, very well. Can I ask Danielle, through, starting in fitness, going into corporate, and now really focused on, coaching and helping other people lift their wellness, well-being, their potential and performance.
Yeah.
I'd really like to get your insights on going through burnout and that overwhelm. What was it for you?
Yes. So there's I think a few things. Firstly, I neglected the things that were important to me, and that was movement. So I have a saying: if you need to move your mood, move your body. And I wasn't doing that anywhere near enough. So that was actually what got me back into the fitness world. So I went, as I said before, I was a personal trainer and I worked in fitness, and then I moved into corporate where I worked almost 10 years in the financial services industry, and of the last four in a people leader role. And when you've got a team and a remit. And different functions that you're responsible for, there is an element of pressure that comes with that, which I really thrived on. I really loved the dynamic, fast-paced movement of that, but at times really neglected to see the impact and the toll that that was having on myself, my mindset, my body. I would go to work earlier, I'd stay back late. And those were the times that I'd carve out for myself to move. And so I stopped doing those things. And then over time, I started to feel not so confident. I started to feel really lethargic. I had really poor sleep quality. Um, and I thought, wow, I've really neglected this element of my life that is actually really important and intrinsically who I am. So I joined the gym when it opened, and then just through connections that I had established in my former fitness days, got back into group fitness instructing. And I remember someone saying to me, "You already work a 45-hour week. How on earth are you going to fit in instructing?" At that time, it was a couple of hours a week. And I thought, well, I'm going to choose my heart because I don't have to be at my job at 5:30 in the morning. I'm choosing to. I don't know why. No one remembers. No one is going to remember me for the report that I wrote or the really pretty slide deck that I put together. I'm sure someone somewhere went, yeah, that was a really cool graphic, but that's not what people are going to remember me for. My son's going to remember me for the energy that I had, all the time that I spent with him, versus being slumped on the couch scrolling on my phone because I was too tired to do anything else. So I chose my heart, and I chose to create a schedule that allowed me to go and instruct in the gym. And then what was really, I guess, the tipping point for me realizing that I was not serving myself in the best way was that after doing that for about a couple of months, I noticed that my productivity at work was improving. I was like, oh my God, I've known this all along. I knew that I needed to look after me to be able to perform better over here. And yes, my time, it's finite. We don't have endless hours in the day, but I chose to show up in the morning for myself versus for my job. And then it made the productivity of my job better anyway. So it's not about necessarily the amount of time that I was spending there. It was the quality of the work I was producing, and I was able to produce a better quality and caliber of work because I was looking after my mind and my body in the mornings. And that's probably a little bit of that. That was my wake up moment. That was one thing. I think the other thing as well is that your culture and the systems and the environment that you are in play a huge part in the way that you show up. So if you're in an environment where people are really empowering you, you're working with like-minded people, you're having
Hmm.
interactions that fill your cup rather than take from it all the time, that plays a big part in that burnout phase. And so, if you're going through, like I said before, everyone needs a job. And often we find ourselves in jobs that we stay in for the long term because we're too scared to try something new, put ourselves out there for something different, maybe look for that promotion and develop our skills or capabilities to be able to jump to the next thing. It's uncomfortable, right? Let's just stay where we are and complain about it instead. Because that feels easier than going and putting myself out there to do something different. But that was a game changer for me as well. So I looked at my work and I looked at the people that I was working with, and I thought, okay, I could learn a thing or two from the people that I work with that's going to help me perform better, but also is going to better what the team objectives are. So I used that culture and that environment to propel me in my career. And I sought those people out outside of my immediate team, outside of the people that I worked with most throughout the day. I went and spoke to senior executives. I went and had coffee catch ups with people who were in completely different business units and said,
Hmm.
hey, talk to me about your world and talk to me about what happens when things are on fire. Like, what happens here? Because if you can approach things with a mindset of you have more to learn from these people that you are around you, but not in your immediate circle, you open yourself up to trying new things and doing things differently rather than being stuck in the same rat wheel, right? Doing the same things over and over, expecting a different result. That's insanity, right?
Hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. So obviously going through that burnout, and all the associated kind of signs and symptoms through that, it really kind of led you to now founding Brite Edge.
Yes, yeah. So as I said, like we perform to the level of our preparation, not just the intent. And for me, I always intended for myself to be a great employee, to be a great wife, great mom. But I wasn't necessarily setting myself up for success. And it's work seems to be the thing that we will focus on most because we hold that to the highest priority because it gives us money, right? And that's really important right now with cost of living and we prioritize that. But you can apply these principles in any context of your life, right? Um, and so what I do with my clients is I really try and help, number one, train the brain like a muscle to think about the world a little differently, to help reframe situations that take you from being stuck as a victim in your own life to really taking control and leading your life with intent and self-leadership. That is so important. I've had the absolute privilege of working with a lot of leaders in my time in a corporate context, working on large scale leader capability programs. And the thing that I see people neglect the most as a leader is themselves. And we need to start there. And if you can master your mindset, then you can go on to influence others and then you can go on to lead enterprise. And it's the starting with self stuff that matters most, I think, and has the most impact in the future state of you. And so I really help people understand that where they are in life is a byproduct of all of the systems and their mindset, their ways of thinking. But the good news is you can interrupt that and change it because our brains are really dynamic. And I'm in no way a neuroscientist or enough informed to go through the scientifics of all of that. But what I do know is that you can rewire your brain. You can learn new skills. You can build your capability. And you do this with small, consistent effort. You can start today, right? Next time you go grocery shopping and you hear a kid screaming in the aisle, the first thing we do is like, oof, that kid, like that's a lot. Whatever's going on there is just like the kid's either acting out, parent doesn't care. You tell yourself all of these stories, right? I challenge you to reframe and go, well, maybe that child is neurodivergent and they're having an episode and this is what they need to do. Maybe that parent just got some really awful news and they don't have it in them to deal with the emotional needs of their child right now because they in themselves are having an inner crisis. There is so much more to the story that we see in front of us. And it's the same of ourselves. So don't tell yourself, oh, I'm so overweight or I'm so lazy and oh, I didn't get up off the couch today and do anything good for my body. That might all be true, but maybe it's a case of I'm going to set an alarm 15 minutes earlier tomorrow so I can walk around the block. And that's something good I'm going to do for me. I'm going to reframe that way of thinking about myself because the stories we tell ourselves are so powerful. And that's what I try to help my clients understand is that what is the story you are telling yourself about you, your partner, your work? What is it? And can you flip the script? Imagine that you are not you. Imagine you are someone on the outside looking in. Tell me what's going on now. Without knowing all the intimate details, what does that person see? Because maybe that's going to offer you a perspective shift that you need to kick your backside into gear to do something a little bit different, or maybe just go a little easier on yourself as you start to develop a new habit. So very much just around reframing your thinking and understanding that of the 50, 60,000 thoughts that we have a day of which we are not aware, could you imagine how exhausting that would be? Our brains are wired to see danger and stress, and we like to think we've evolved, but we haven't, right? We are still built in the times where we're running from tigers and needing to fight for our life, and our
Yes.
brain, our amygdala, is looking for stress and danger, and we will very easily fall into a stress response or a victim mentality and go, oh my god, I need to fight or run, fight, flight, freeze. We are always putting ourselves in situations like that, but you can try to interrupt that thinking by going, right, let's just pause. Let's have a look at what's going on. How can I choose to respond differently to maybe my knee-jerk reaction, which you've built up over a lifetime of doing the same thing over and over and over again? And then how could that response change the outcome, right? How could that be a little bit different if I choose to respond a different way? And it
Mm.
takes practice. You can't expect to show up when the stakes are high and just do that. You need to practice in the low stake moments when it doesn't matter. Just like an athlete wouldn't take to the field to play, say, a 90-minute football game without having practiced 3-4 nights of training before that game, right? It's the same as our brains and the way that we look at the world, the way that we perceive the things that are going on around us. You need to practice adopting a different perspective, even if it feels uncomfortable. You don't have to agree with it. You just have to go, oh, yeah, that could be true. Oh, yeah, that could be true. And over time, you'll start to develop more empathy, not just for yourself, others as well. You'll develop perspective and you'll be able to talk yourself into a different way of thinking before things feel so overwhelming that you can't handle the stress or the response that normally comes from that.
Mm.
Right, a little bit
And I know that,
long-winded,
no, that's all right. And I know that you're very passionate about it, right? Like
clearly.
I love the conversations we have about it, but it's interesting. I know, we've been talking about it, and you talk about your fitness and your health and your well-being. You talk about the corporate, and you've got that knowledge and experience, but it's really about helping people, not just be sustainable in their health and fitness, but also being sustainable in their, career. But overall, it's being sustainable holistically, right? In all facets of their life, mum, parent, friend, sibling, all these different things, making sure that you can be the best version of you, and that it's sustainable,
Yeah.
and that you're not just focusing on one thing. And obviously at different times we will focus on, okay, so if you're focusing on more of your health and fitness for a 30-day, challenge at the gym, there's probably going to be a couple of things that are probably going to be sacrificed in that 30 days, right? And it does, like I talk about the wheel of life in life coaching, right? And you've got finance, relationship, friends,
Mm.
fun, all these things. And I say there's never a time when that is a perfect wheel, right? It just isn't, because things happen from time to time. Life has a cycle. But as long as you're aware of it, and that you can kind of be going, how do I make, I've got a 5 out of 10 in finance. How could I move that to a 6 out of 10? How could I move in fun? How could I go from a 4 out of 10 to a 5 out of 10? How can I make these incremental, just slight movements forward, and how will that affect my life long term?
Yeah, definitely. And that's just it. There's saying work-life balance. And I think that, it's not necessarily balance that we're trying to achieve. We're just trying to bring some consistency into, whether it's how you perform at work, or what the effort that you're putting in there, the effort that you're putting in at home, or in your own health and fitness. There is going to be at times where you will need to prioritize something over the other. And that's okay. Right, that's absolutely fine. It's where we're doing that all of the time that we then start to neglect the things that are important, and then they just get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And then eventually the one thing that's keeping us going, something might happen there. That great example of this. My job for so long was my beacon on the hill. It was the thing that I was excellent at. And I would show up at work and I'd love the person that I was there. I loved the people that I worked with. I enjoyed the culture, and I was so enthusiastic and motivated in that job. I loved everything that we were doing. We went through a really large scale transformation, and things felt chaotic for a little while. The systems that we had in place were pulled apart because we needed to forge the path for new ones. And that work bubble that I went to and felt so great in very quickly knocked me, and my confidence went through the floor. I was like, I can't do this. How have I gone from being really great to being knocked flat on my ass and not knowing what to do in this situation? And what then happened was that I realized that the rest of my life was also in this kind of state where I felt like I was not present or intentionally living in any of the areas of my life, intentionally living, period. And so when you do notice that you are prioritizing a portion of your life over at the detriment of others, that's when you need to go, okay, well, how do I achieve a little bit more of a equal tension in the way that I'm prioritizing things? So as an example, no phones at the dinner table, right? We don't scroll, we don't work, we don't check emails, we don't respond to the notifications. That is a tech-free zone. So that allows me to prioritize my family for that 30 minutes that we're sitting at the table. right? And it's small stuff like that. Like I said, it's not sexy stuff. Like I really wish that there's a secret, that it's really just um, putting in place those small things that allow you to do whatever it is you want to focus on better at that for that, period of time.
Yep. Having boundaries and non-negotiables.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And exercise for me is a non-negotiable. I say my husband knows that, my son knows that, and I think that's important. Parents have this parent guilt is something I could talk about for a really long time. Having been through it, having neglecting myself postpartum, there's a lot that that's a whole other conversation. It is not selfish to prioritize you. It is not
Mm.
selfish to take 60 minutes out of your day to go for a walk, 30 minutes out of your day to stretch or lift some weights. It is not selfish to do those things. And parents tell themselves this story that it is, because I need to devote 100% of my time to this human that I've created. It's not true. And the behavior that you're role modeling is that you're going to always be there for them. Where does their resilience come from? Where does their critical thinking come from? Where does their skill and capability come from to be able to walk through life if you're always there? You know, you asked me before, how do I help Liam with this stuff? I'm raising him to be independent, and I'm raising him to be able to look at situations and have his first thought not be, "Oh, mum, answer this for me." It's, "I'm gonna try and work this out myself, and then when I can't, I'll ask for help." And if we can, do those things for our kids, if we can do those things for ourselves, our children, our friends, the people around us see that it's actually okay to look after ourselves rather than looking after everybody else first. And on that note, I'll also say that going grocery shopping is not timeout, parents. That is not doing something for you. You need to shop to put food on the table. That is not or should not be counted as doing something for yourself, right? I hear that all the time. "Oh, I got out and I went to do my grocery shopping." No. That's not adulty or adulting, right? Like we have to do that, and that is not time out. You might enjoy maybe the peace and
Mm.
quiet when you're doing that and it feels good, but go and get a massage, go and book a coffee, catch up with someone, go and read a book in the library for 60 minutes. That is time out for you, not doing your grocery shopping.
Yeah. And I think talking about that parent guilt, talking about the pressures of life, talking about, how we're kind of just on this conveyor belt of life, conveyor belt of career, conveyor belt of health and fitness. But obviously at the end of this year, you're leading Overland Trek.
Yes. I'm channeling my hiking enthusiasm to go on a multi-day trek in Tassie. Yes, I'm very excited and maybe even a little bit nervous about that. That's going to push me out of my comfort zone, fitness-wise, and I think mentally. I'm a bit of a princess in the piece. I'm not sure how I'm going to go sleeping on boardwalk, but I am super excited for the adventure.
You'll be fine. I'll give you some tips around some of the, the blow up mattresses that you
Yes,
can get that are
excellent.
pretty good.
I'll leave.
So having done it twice, obviously I know the benefits of it, but, talk to me about who you think should be attending.
Anybody who has a love of wanting to just be in the outdoors, connect with nature. We're talking 5 nights, 6 days of being in Tasmanian wilderness, right? Where you will disconnect because you can't charge your phone. You are going to connect with the humans around you. Nothing else is going to matter for that amount of time. It also requires a degree of preparation. So I think if you're somebody who likes to have the big goal and work towards something really big and shiny at the end as a bit of a reward, this is that opportunity. I think it's for anybody who was wanting to maybe just live a little differently for the next several months as you prepare to go on a trek like that. It's certainly not for people who are, you don't have to be fit to do it already. Do you know what I mean? Like there's time to prepare. And I think you're able to start that now, the mindset, the physical conditioning, the mental conditioning. And of course, if you are super fit, then yeah, you'll probably find carrying a, 20 kg pack a little bit easier than someone who hasn't done that before or they're in the beginning of their fitness journey. But yeah, I think it's honestly for anybody who is wanting to try something a little bit different. I think that people are probably a little bit like, "Whoa, it's a really long time to be hiking." We're talking at least 65 kilometers over a period of 6 days. that is definitely achievable if you can set up the systems now and start conditioning the body, the mind to be able to do that. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a fantastic challenge. I think that the camaraderie will be super important. We'll get to see, um, you know, parts of the world that people don't ever get an opportunity to see. And you'll get some lifelong friends and memories from it. How cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, having gone through the experience twice and also doing other men's retreats and getting out and adventure, like I find some of the best ideas or the most clarity I get in life is when I'm walking along a trail or I'm sitting on top of a peak. Just that feeling of like, I just think it's a great analogy for life because there's times in, I'll tell you when I got the opportunity on the second time I did the overland track, and it was a good day and we could go up Mount Ossa. And I thought, oh, that's a big climb. It was like up rocks. And there was only about maybe 4 of us that went, I think, of the group. And we went up there and there was a point where you had to basically hold onto a rock and swing around to get onto the other side of the path, right? I'm giving you a good preview already, Danielle.
I can't wait.
But I remember sitting there and going, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't go any further. I'll just walk back down. Look, the view up here is nice enough. That's what I was. But the other crew helped me. The guide helped me. I put on my big boy pants. I took on that courage and I got around and I went, oh, I can do it. Oh, I did it. That was great. And on the way down, I just swung back around it and I was fine, right? Like that fear, I'd pushed through it and I learned so much about myself. But the conversations that you're having when you're not looking at your phone, conversations you're having when you're not watching a TV or, there's so many distractions going on. At the end of each day, some of my best memories is sitting around just having conversations, with a cup of warm soup because it had rained that day or whatever it is, right? Like when we're trekking, but we're just sitting out there, you can just hear nature and you're having these really deep reflections. You're having these deep conversations with people. Sometimes people sometimes people you don't. For me, it was great because the first trek I went with my sister and brother-in-law. The second one I went with my 2 brothers, right? So I've done that experience with my siblings and we had some really great conversations and even shed some tears at certain points because it was a deeper level of, rather than just going to, kind of family gatherings and catching up and that, just being able to get out in the wilderness and just talk and reflect and then talk a bit more. And it was just the growth, I think, that people get from that. And I think it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're a stay-at-home mum or dad, or whether you're an executive, a CEO, whatever it is, there's benefits to each and every person. As you said, everyone, right? Who's it going to benefit? Who's it for? Everyone. And I think it's been great to see the alignment of obviously my brother's organization, Mind and Body Travel, into what you're doing as well. And there's a beautiful alignment there of that corporate and that wellness, wellbeing retreats. I look forward to seeing the photos and hearing the stories of your trek. And we'll obviously, I'll share that information for anyone that wants to, kind of book in because we're in March, April. It's a great time to make a decision to go, okay, because sometimes people go, new me, new year, new me. And then they get to kind of February and it starts to wade off. Now it's a good time to go, okay, maybe I do need a challenge later this year that I can start doing some hikes with the group. I can be motivated. I can get a friend to join me and jump in on the hike as well. And you're going to get the benefits, not just from doing the overland track, but the benefits of actually that journey to the overland track.
The preparation. And, I think something you were saying around when you had that moment where you were at the rock face and you're like, oh gosh, can I swing? Can I not swing? When you're in the moment like that, that's just it. You're in the moment. And the reason that you're able to have the thoughts and the ideas and the emotional release at times is because you're actually not doing anything. You've got nothing else pulling your mind elsewhere. You're present. And that's what this is going to offer people. It's more than just the fitness challenge. And if that's what you're motivated by, fantastic. If you're someone, and It's no secret, Steve, that I am motivated by a number. I do love to hit a certain kilometer on the bike or a certain number of kilometers hiking. I think anyone who followed along the last Tassie trip that my sister and I did, I was really dead set on making it a 30K day a couple of times, which we did do. Um, the
And Cass looked
number,
so impressed.
yes, yeah. Look, there's there's definitely some sister bonding going on there, and some moments that I'm sure that she'll never quite forgive me for, particularly on some of the higher altitude climbs. But no one died and no one made the news falling off the hill, so we're all okay. But I think it doesn't matter what you're motivated by, whether it's the fitness element of doing something like the overland, whether it's just taking yourself totally out of your comfort zone. Maybe it's actually just that you want to take a break and do something so wildly different to, a trip down the coast or up the coast, and sitting in a hotel room where there's still people bustling around and there's still distractions, and often you go and you still scroll on your phone. If you're after something really different that does help, almost like shock the body into like, oh, wow, this is a completely different way of feeling and being, then this is a fantastic opportunity. There is a degree of fitness that is going to need to be involved. You have to carry a pretty heavy pack, and you do need to be able to condition the body, so different types of terrain. But that's why, I've got a little hiking group. I know you're part of that, C, where we get together and the camaraderie is so much fun. Someone came along though I think they were voluntold, to be honest, to come along with their partner who doesn't enjoy hiking, and did a 10-kilometer day. And it was amazing, right? Like, we
Yeah.
had so much fun doing that. And when you are around
And the humor
like-minded
and the
people,
banter.
yes, I bring the banter. Sometimes I'll bring snacks. Sometimes those snacks don't quite make the hike because I get hungry in the car, but that's okay. It is so much.
Yeah.
There's so much joy that can be brought by doing an experience like that. And I think, for me, I'm not going to say that I'm at midlife, but there are people who are, approaching that midlife, and it doesn't have to be downhill. It doesn't have to be crisis. It can be the best is yet to come. It truly can. And this might be something that for someone who's maybe going, gosh, I'm wanting a little more out of life, or I'm wanting to do something a little different for myself because I've just spent the last 20 years maybe being a parent, and now my adult children are moving out of home. What's my purpose in life? Do something like this for yourself. Do something that's really different. Yes, if it frightens you or scares you a little bit, it's probably that you're on the right track to doing something amazing that you're unlikely going to regret.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. It's going to be a great trip. And as I said, we'll share the details for that as well. I wanted to ask you, Danielle, obviously we're always learning, we're always growing as people. What's something that you're still working out about yourself?
Oh, there's a lot that I'm working out about myself, I think, or learning. When something pops up, I'm like, oh, that was an interesting thought. Um, I think for me right now, where I am in life is that I've gone through a fairly significant transition, having left a workplace that I was spent almost 10 years at. That's a lot of time to spend with an organization, building some incredible relationships, some incredible capability, and networking with those people. I think for me, what I'm learning is, maybe I always knew it but didn't acknowledge it, is that I really thrive when I have a team of people around me. And I've needed to really shape, well, what does that team dynamic look like now that I'm not, I'm a business owner, and yes, I do group fitness and I'm surrounded by people in that context, but how do I continue to grow and stretch myself when I don't necessarily have that sort of structure around different roles and senior leaders. And, I'm my own boss now. I don't have someone peer reviewing my work or stretching me to do more or perform more. So there's an element of self-leadership and discipline that I'm needing to lean into, which I know I can do, but perhaps procrastinate more than I should at times. And that's okay. I know that I can set up the systems to help me do better there. And I'm adopting some of those. But I think that that's something that I'm really leaning into. I've led large scale programs, teams, onboarding initiatives, culture reform and transformation programs. I know that I've got the skill and capability to execute and do the same thing in my own business, and for Brite Edge. But it's doing it without the same kind of team and resources and structure. So it's just, how do I shift perspective and do that a little bit differently without letting go of all of that capability that I've built? How do I leverage that, in fact, to make it better than ever?
Yeah, perfect. And when you think about success, what does success mean to you these days?
Oh, I think it's going to depend on the context, but success for me is number one, waking up each day with a roof over my head and people around me who cheer me on to pick me up on my low days because we all have them. And success is having the resilience, I think, to the mental resilience piece for me. It's being able to have speed wobbles and not let that destroy, really great ideas or things that I'm passionate about, things that I'm really enthusiastic to do. Um, Success for me is those things. The ability to pick myself up when I fall off the wagon, whatever it is, and keep going anyway. Um, it's definitely not the income or salary number or the KPI or, those numbers I said before, like I am still motivated by a number, but it's not everything. And if I can look back at my life, if I can help my son see that there's so much more than like you are so much more as a person than the outcomes that you see on paper, that is success for me.
Yeah, perfect. And who would you say throughout your life's been your greatest teacher?
Ooh, I don't think I can say just one. That's such an interesting question. I'll reflect on that later and come up with a really great answer. You watch and then I'll text it to you and you're like, I life's
And Cass
greatest
is listening
teacher.
to this saying, your sister, your sister, your sister.
No, can't give the younger sibling any credit. No, I do. We actually have such a fantastic relationship. I'm so grateful for that. That we've moved into adulthood, and my sister's my best friend. Um, Life's greatest teacher. Like life is the teacher, right? Like it really is. I think that I'm never going to know it all. And the people that I meet are never going to know it all, even if they think they do, right? That continuous learning. Um, I think there's not one particular person or experience where I've gone like up to certainly I think you can learn from those sorts of events, those big things, but it's the small moments for me. Um it's the small decisions that I make where I go, "Oh, I've chosen to do X instead of Y," and that shows growth to me. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I'm not sure that that's really gonna answer what you've asked, but I I
I
really
think you
do
answered it.
believe that it's continuous learning
Mm.
and you're
And
never
life
gonna
is the
know it all.
teacher.
That's it, life is the teacher.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, 100%. You wanna know though something that I just thought of this as we were chatting, I was thinking about my son. When we were talking about the brain function and the amygdala, there's a fantastic book. The author is Dr. Karen Young, and it is a book called Hey Brain, You're Awesome, or something to that effect. And it's really age appropriate stuff to help a child understand the function of their brain and why, what is anxiety? Why does your brain see things as stress? And what was so fascinating was that when I picked this book up a couple of years ago, I was going through that cycle of burnout that we spoke about. And even though as an adult in their 30s, I knew what anxiety was and I knew the signs and the symptoms, I took a book written for children for me to have that aha moment where I was like, damn it, I need a circuit breaker here. So that was interesting, but no, I think that ultimately my lesson is life, and I think it's just approaching it each day, knowing that you have something to learn and something to experience, and sometimes those experiences will add value, and sometimes they'll show you exactly the type of human you don't want to be, and that's okay too.
Yeah, perfect. I've got one last question for you,
Far
Danielle.
away.
Obviously, going from fitness into the corporate world and now coming back into running your own business, if you were tasked to set up
Mm.
a corporate organization to, you know, focus on performance, but have a foundation of health, fitness, wellness, and well-being, what are some of the things that you would put into that organization?
Yeah. Oh, that is so good of a question. There are so many things, but it's that self-leadership piece that I spoke about before. It's helping people understand, how their brains work. It's helping people understand the value of movement, nutrition, looking after self, strategies to help when you are feeling overwhelmed. Um, I think that that's really important. I know that there are a lot of fantastic EAP or employee assistance programs out there that and resources. Businesses are adopting these, and I think that that's
Mm.
fantastic. But ultimately, you can provide all of the tools and resources to your people But until you get them together and start getting them sharing and talking about how they're utilizing those or how they're adopting those strategies and then the benefits of that, that connection piece, that's all they're ever going to be. It's like a gift that you've been given, but no one's opening it. So is it really a gift if you're not using it properly? So having, yes, the theory and the structures in place, having those fantastic EAP programs, but allowing your people time to engage with those, not just as a throwaway, jump onto the app and see what resources are available. It's actually building that into your ways of working. Do you set up, certain team time to discuss the wins and celebrate the things that have happened? Or is it always just strategy and business? Part of your strategy needs to be your people. Your people run your organization. And so if you are going to achieve all of the amazing things that you want to and fulfill the purpose of what your business is there to do, you need to invest in your people and you need to get them to invest in themselves.
Yep, perfect. That's awesome. Now, Danielle, for those that want to reach out to you, reach out to Brite Edge, what's the best way?
Yeah, so you can drop me an email, so danielle@briteedge.com.au, or you can also find me on LinkedIn. You can find it just by searching the Brite Edge page or Danielle Richards. You can also get me on Instagram, and my handle there is danielle.briteedge. And I'm happy to respond to anyone who wants to ask me a question or anything you've heard today you want to know a little bit more about, tools and strategies to help build your mindset resilience and get some really great systems around you to achieve all the goals you have.
Yeah, and follow Danielle on Instagram if you want to see some karaoke moments in cycle from time to time.
Yeah, look, I do enjoy a little bit of a sing along. I don't realize that I do it as part of being present. I don't think I'm going to go and I'm going to sing this song today. No, I think it's just a nice distraction from sounding like Darth Vader in the mic.
Yeah. No, that sounds good. All good. Well, I appreciate your time today, your insights. Good luck with the trek later on in the year. I'm looking forward to hitting some of the training hikes in the lead up to it. And I just want to wish you all the best with Brite Edge and obviously, your passion and purpose to help more people kind of realize their potential and, bring into those holistic elements into their life to make them a better version of whatever they want to be.
That's it. Thanks so much for having me, Steve. You have an awesome day.
You too. Thanks, Danielle.
Bye.